Good evening and welcome to our monthly get-together. This is Shively Shoulders. I'm Les Shively. That's Pat Shoulders over there.
Welcome, gentle viewers and fellow bleeding hearts. We have so much to talk about. I can't wait. And a special guest star.
We do have a special guest. The governor of the state of Indiana will be with us.
So special that I have been banned from this show.
He has other professional commitments, and we're sorry he won't be here.
I'm sorry I won't be here. I actually like Eric Holcomb. I spent some time with him at an IU bowl game down in Jacksonville. He's never been an ideologue, the kind of people who will elect evidently a plate of fettuccine up in the dang Republican convention. All you got to do is be a little bit to the right of MAGA, and it appears you can be the lieutenant governor candidate.
Very interesting. Republicans hadn't had this situation since 1996 when Stephen Goldsmith was the gubernatorial candidate, and he decided to let the convention decide. We had 6 people apply for that position, and the delegates did decide. This is a little different. He'd already tapped a running mate, assuming that the convention would rubber stamp and approve that appointment.
Judge, I mean, seriously, it's becoming, well, there was a great column in the New York Times today about the MAGA types, and it was focused on Indiana beginning to eat their own. And that's what's taken place. I mean, Todd Rokita, we now have the 3 Stooges, Diego Morales, Todd Rokita, and welcome Micah Beckwith, who, ladies and gentlemen, said on his podcast that God spoke to him and told him that God sent the rioters to Washington, D.C. on January 6th. That's your lieutenant governor candidate.
Well, more disturbing than that is that he ran on a platform, if you will, that if nominated, he would take the job as being the watchdog for the governor's action. He's supposed to be the governor's partner and lieutenant governor. That's what the term says.
Mike Brown's worst nightmare. He has probably got to be rethinking it now, because he will spend 4 years apologizing for what this idiot says or fighting off that wing of his own party. I don't know where that goes, frankly, but it's not good for the state, which I'm hearing Joe Donnelly now, and maybe McCormick becomes a lieutenant governor candidate, and the Democrats are sniffing an opening.
You know more about that side of the political aisle than I do, so fill me in.
Well, I think there's thinking that abortion will be an issue, even in a state like Kentucky. Well, you know, there are examples all over the country where very, very red states, when it comes to a woman's right to choose, motivates voters.
Kansas is the best example.
Kansas is a better example than Kentucky. So that was always going to be part of the playbook. But now, Micah Beckwith has dealt an entire new set of cards. And so I think there's talk. I don't have any inside information, but what troubles me?
Yes, sir.
We had a show on television those years ago, back when you could be in politics, and you were part of what I would have called the Republican establishment. Low taxes, small government, strong military, the kinds of things that party stood for at that time. Where do those people go now? Where do your former colleagues, established Republicans, where's their home?
I don't know if they have a home right now. It's going to take leadership within the Republican Party to get things back on the rails, if you will. I think both established parties are having problems relating to the electorate. Who would have thought in this presidential election year, given the anti-Trump mood that's out there, that Trump would be making inroads with younger voters, mostly Democrat voters? I mean, both parties are having problems with relating to their base.
And in a jaw-dropping article I also read this morning, his approval percentage and favorability rating with young African Americans has gone from 7% into like almost 30%. Right. I don't know how to read that, but this Republican insurgency, perfect segue to what's going on locally.
Yeah.
We have to the right of the MAGA wing, Mike Duckworth filling our newspapers, where even on a local level, the Republicans are eating their own. Circular firing squad, we used to call it.
At the local level, I don't know how you accomplish that much, because we've talked before and we've demonstrated on this show. The more local you get, the more you and I would agree. And people at the local level really don't care who's got a D or an R behind their names. They just want their streets paved, their community to be safe, and they really don't care about the labels. And I think there's a lot of energy being wasted on those philosophical notions that really don't have anything to do with delivering service.
I think that's where the voters are. I don't think this leadership surge, however, or this battle, I think the Dougherty, Ken Colbert wing is trying to represent that the same place Micah Beck, this Christian nationalism or whatever that is about, is really now, and this book banning and all of that, is really now infecting local politics.
It is infecting in terms of the leadership, how the party internally operates. But at the end of the day, voters are less aligned with particular parties. They want, like I said, the services, and they want their government to react to the problems they're having. I learned that very well during COVID. Vanderbilt County and the city of Evansville responded to COVID better than any other community, mainly because we put the D and R labels aside, liberal and conservative labels aside as well, and we addressed the problem and we got the job done.
And our schools were a national model, never closed a day. You're right. A lot of great things that we can talk about. But today's show, I need to tell our loyal viewers that my plans will take me away, but the governor himself is going to be here. Now, have you brought extra makeup and hairspray?
I have.
Because without me, I'm a little concerned. I know Les can handle this.
Pat,
but you're going to ask the tough ones, right?
Rest assured, Patrick, I'll do you proud.
I want to know why he didn't support Suzanne.
Well, we're going to probably get into that subject.
I know you will. Viewers, you're in for a treat. I am so sorry I won't be here. Stay tuned.
Well, as we promised you, a very special guest, the governor of the great state of Indiana, Eric Holcomb.
It's great to be back with you.
Glad to have you with us.
It's been a while.
I want to start our time together. This is sort of the end of your service as governor. But how you got there?
Yeah.
Tell a little bit about your background, where you're from originally,
Yeah.
and how you got involved in politics, and how it eventually led to the governor's office.
Yep. A very abbreviated recollection of a blurry couple decades, but got out of the United States Navy, was serving abroad, moved to Vincennes, Indiana, where my mother was born and raised. My father was from Oaktown, so Knox County, both of them.
Right.
They met at Vincennes University there on the campus, and have them to thank for being here, I guess, ultimately. But I moved into the home my mother was raised in, so the home that I would always, and my brother and mom and dad would, spend holidays and summers, and so I knew the territory. I was a huge history buff, still am, and that terrain is pretty rich in history. It's where we were all kind of came out of the territory together, and ended up working for Congressman Hostetler. And then that led to getting to know a lot of different mayors all over the 8th District. That led to getting to know and wanting a guy named Mitch Daniels to run for governor. So before he made up his mind, before he announced, I was doing a lot of traveling all over the state on my own dime. And ultimately he decided to run, and then I sold the house and moved up to Indianapolis, went to work for him, spent about 10 years doing that. He asked me to be the state party chairman. I said yes. That wasn't something I was looking to do, but he asked. He's pretty persuasive, and did that. Then ended up working for Senator Coates. And then when Sue Ellspermann, who was lieutenant governor at the time for then Governor Pence, decided to pursue her passion and dream in higher education and be the president of Ivy Tech, where she still is. That opened up the lieutenant governor's job, and then ultimately, then Governor Pence decided he asked me, and my wife, by the way, and we said we're all in if we can help. That was successful, and then or candidate Trump asked then Governor Pence to be his running mate. That presented a vacancy for his position. We decided to throw our hat in the ring, and 106 days later, we were elected.
So the
51st governor, yeah.
first public office you held, elected office.
Elected, first time ever running statewide, 106 days. I recommend doing that, by the way, except for the having to raise tens of millions of dollars. But it was a blur, but it was worth it. And, you know, I knew the state as state party chairman and working, especially the southwestern quadrant, but then working for Mitch before he got elected and for ultimately 10 years in one capacity or another. And that was always statewide. So I had no excuse. I knew what the job was about.
Sure.
Certainly it's different on the other side of the desk than it is on a staff person's perspective.
As you look back, what would you name as your 5 top accomplishments?
You know, I haven't looked back a lot right now, and I try to catch myself from doing that. I'll answer your question. I'm not evading being pinned down on it, but we have 208 days left. That's just over 4,900 hours, and there's a lot to do between now and then. The pipeline is full, a lot of good pieces to snap together, and so we're far from being done. I do reflect on, and I encourage folks that work in this administration to smell the roses along the way. It keeps you fired up, but I would say you can look at that 2 different ways. You can look at it in general, and then you can look at it very specifically. I think one of the things I'm most proud of, and when I think back, I'll think of the people that we were able to attract, the team that we were able to build that was nimble, could adapt to the different year or season, come what may, COVID as an example, or a changing economy. And without that team, then everything else becomes more difficult. I would say that the way that we have transitioned to a state that goes after the economy we want, so we're not just transactional, we're very strategic and tactical along the way. And so we're going after the economies of the future or the industries of the future, and that's starting to pay off in terms of we've always been an ag powerhouse. We've always been a manufacturing powerhouse, #1 per capita in the country. Now we're becoming a leader in the creation of these products.
Got some big tech announcements this year.
Huge, and across the board in various sectors, whether it be ag, biotech, or winning the AI war that's right out there in front of us, out there on the horizon. And so for us to go from not being a player whatsoever in the semiconductor business or in the microelectronics business, now we've got an award for a microelectronics hub, going to be huge to Crane and all the work that Crane's been doing in southwestern Indiana. We've got multiple data centers. Used to say, you know, the golden rule is whoever has the gold makes the rules.
Right.
Well, who owns the data
Right.
is paramount to how growth occurs. And so we're going to be able to not just grow data here, but distribute that as well. And, you know, speaking to that, you got to make sure you've got the workforce. So I'm proud of all the different workforce programs, proud of getting a direct flight back to Chicago out of Evansville, proud of finishing I-69, all kinds of infrastructure projects. I could go on and on and on just about this corner of the state being connected to the world. This is not, you know, when we finish I-69, which is right around the corner, Section 6 especially, but keep this in mind that 26, 27-mile section is about $2 billion. The rest of I-69, all the way down to Evansville, is about $2 billion. So we're finishing Section 6 on time, ahead of schedule, by the way. We shaved off about 3 years. We renegotiated a toll road lease, moved $600 million into I-69 to shave off 3 years. Glad we did because of the inflationary time we're living in. We're saving money by finishing early. And so that's going to not just connect 3 cities, Bloomington, Evansville, and Indy. That's not going to just connect 3 states. That's going to connect 3 countries. And that's a corridor. That's a powerful trading block. And we're right in the heart of it.
People down here don't know much about the LEAP project.
Yeah.
Thousands of acres involved.
Yeah.
Eli Lilly is a major player in that program.
Just invested $9 billion.
And there's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of controversy. But explain to our viewers what this project is all about.
Yeah, it's born out of necessity, really, if we want to continue to keep up and catch the competition and pass them and continue to put wins on the board. and keep our talent here in the state of Indiana, across the whole state as part of an ecosystem. And we've got a inventory of sites. Evansville does. The southwestern quadrant of our state has an inventory of not just sites, but buildings, offices that are available, that are being, like a realtor. If you're going to show your properties what's available, it's already ready to go. So someone calls us and says, we need 5 acres or 50 acres or 500 acres or 5,000. We need to be able to answer that question quick. Speed is part of the name of the game here. And we were watching other states get deals that had an enormous investment associated with them because they were ready to go. They had these mega sites. We've got one already really in River Ridge that's been going on for years and years and years, very, very successful. And LEAP ended up being born out of industry saying between Purdue and FedEx, in this case, an example, that 50-yard line looks very attractive. And so a number of folks that we're working with started expressing interest, and we said, how can we make this happen, and how can we operate at the speed of business, not at the speed of government? And that's kind of flipped the script and put us in the game. And now we're, as I just mentioned, Eli Lilly has committed to invest $9 billion additional dollars in that and around that LEAP district, and others I'm quite confident will come. It's obviously a change. If you go into Boone County, Indiana, I grew up on that side of town, went to Pike High School, and if you look at the growth in southern Boone County, residentially speaking, and logistics companies all along I-65, I hope that continues to sprout all over the state of Indiana on our other interstates as well, because now that we've become almost a flywheel, success attracts success.
Right.
And folks are looking at the state of Indiana, and usually they need to be close to an interstate, rail access, port access. By the way, Evansville's got all three.
Let me shift gears. We talk about some optimistic aspects of your term in office. You were criticized by a lot of people about how you handled COVID. How do you respond to that?
I was criticized by some who were very, I'll say, organized and loud. But if you look at, if I go out every single day when I'm in the public, and I'm in the public every single day, I make myself very accessible. I have people thank me. If you look at the recent polling that we don't do, our approval's in the 60s. The last poll that someone had up in Indy was 69% approval. So the vast majority of people are very appreciative. But I get it. When you have to balance lives and livelihoods, and it's a change
What book did you go to find how to do that?
Well, there wasn't a book. I remember, actually, that's a great point. I was in Evansville, Indiana, doing an interview down here, and it was just starting. And a young, aspiring reporter asked me, what's the pandemic playbook? And there was none. And I said, well, we dealt with the flu in the past, and we're going to get through this. We got the right team. But there was no book
we had the
to
flu
go
back
to.
in 1917.
Yeah, exactly right. And by the way, we had experts around a round table like this, properly distanced, but who might not agree with one another. And so ultimately, you got to make a decision. Now, if you rewind and go back to that day and then look at how we came out of it, we bounced out of the pandemic like few others in the state or in the country. And so I'm very proud of the way that we made lemonade out of a lot of lemons.
Switching gears to the latest primary, we had numerous candidates for governor, including our Evansville own Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch. You sort of stayed on the sidelines. You didn't endorse anybody. Can you explain why?
Yeah, absolutely I can explain why, and probably for more than one or two reasons. One, I'm friends of a number of them, work with a number of them in a very official capacity, will continue to. As I mentioned, this administration has 208 days left and a lot of hard work to do. And so I wanted to make sure that we maintained those relationships. Secondly, I put out what I was hearing from people that wanted to be addressed and said, here's priorities that you're going to have to deal with as governor of the state of Indiana from my perspective and what I'm hearing from the public. So I tried to be helpful in terms of making the job easier once you get it. Because like I said, it's different when you're on this side of the desk.
Right.
And so it was in the spirit of being constructive. And so I was hoping that someone was going to kind of gravitate toward that long
You were a little
list.
critical of the candidates of not putting out there how they were going to deal
Sure.
with actually state issues.
Yeah. Try to remain constructive, but critical, yes, in the sense that there's so many things that people were talking about around the kitchen table. And by the way, I was being very respectful in the sense that had I endorsed one, I've kind of felt like that might hinder their ability to be liberated to be critical of me, by the way, of which some of them took that liberty. And so be it. That's a campaign. But I'm in an official office right now, and I want to remain focused on my job and not pulled in. But I offered what I thought would be helpful for the public to know where candidates stood for, and then allow them to have the space to run on whatever they thought.
We just finished the Republican State Convention. You chose not to attend, which I understand.
Yeah.
But here we have the nominee for the Republican Party, Senator Braun.
Yeah.
He taps this junior representative as his running mate, which we thought would be ratified at the convention. And all of a sudden, Micah Beckwith emerges, like a person who's been identified with the far right of the Republican Party. And so Senator Braun's choice didn't materialize. Mm-hmm. How do you explain that situation?
Well, fortunately, I don't have to. But I did say before the convention that you have to. I certainly did respect the delegates and understand their mood, and so going into it. By the way, the reason I didn't go, and this is not unprecedented, is I think the convention rightly should be all about the future. I'm about the present for sure, and the past, and soon, 208 days, all about the past. But I wanted it to be forward-looking. That's how I view the remaining days I have left, and that's how I want the party that I love and the jersey that I wear to operate.
You were very instrumental in the Mitch Daniels administration. You're party chair. Yeah. Mitch had a certain style.
Yeah.
You had a certain style, which I might add, sort of emulated what the approach that Mitch Daniels took towards being a Republican governor.
Yeah.
Do you think you or Mitch today, given the Republican Party the way it's evolved under the MAGA people, could get nominated?
We'll never know, will we? But I'd like to think you could if you believe that good policy makes good politics, and you're willing to go out and work day and night, 24/7, and try to not just put out a message but inspire with your message. I think you can, because people were asking a very similar question when Mitch was thinking about running. Right. Could you get elected? Could you get elected? And we had been out for, you remember, plus 16. And lo and behold, I learned from it, paid attention, wasn't sleeping in class. He put out a long series of ideas, connected with the electorate, Hoosiers, brought people together and got elected. So yeah, I think we could, but that's just one man talking.
A little different playing field today, right?
It's a little different, but you have to recognize that. Okay. And by the way, there are a lot of folks yearning for good policies that are going to take not just this state, but this country forward.
Two last things. Sort of a fact that a lot of people don't know about, except we judges know about. You've appointed more judges than any governor in the history of the state of Indiana.
Oh, you're right.
In fact, 100.
We take that, and the whole team, the team gets a lot of credit for how thorough they are, how they look not just at the judicial experience, but the whole person and what they want to bring. If they have the head and heart for servant leadership, et cetera. And we're well. Mitch did 66 appointments in 8 years. Mike did 25 in 4 years. We're already over 100 with more in the queue.
One last note. You and I are both race fans.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Great news. Fox is
Yeah.
going to carry the whole
Yeah.
IndyCar on network television.
Right, and more than just one race, and qualifying days leading up to it, and streaming access. So viewership is going to be, I think, off the charts. Racing is back with a fury.
And Roger Penske has been a great asset to not only the Motor Speedway, but to the economy of Indiana.
Yeah, it's almost a spiritual endeavor for him. He is the absolute ideal steward of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We, on planet Earth, of the billions of people out there, we got the number one best guy to not just own it, but to run it, because he looks at everything through the fans' lens. He's customer centric, and so that place looks better than I've ever seen it.
Oh, absolutely.
It looks like you're out there walking around Augusta or something, and it's a huge race with 300,000+ people
Sure.
roaming around. So we're blessed to have that commitment from him and racing back.
Well, Governor, thanks for being with us. And you made it very clear you're not a lame duck governor. You're still 208 days left.
Nope, I'm going to be running through the tape, and I'll still be running with the baton to hand to, I think, Senator Braun.
Been a great governor. Appreciate your service to the state of Indiana. We'll see you. Pat and I'll be back next month. We won't have as great a guest as we had today, but we'll try to put on something for you. Take care.